like I said, I think the hardest part is just putting it out there.
Absolutely. Well, they say
Put it out there.
they said more people would be successful if you could be bad in private, but as a musician, you
Yeah.
have to be bad in public before you get good. So you have
Yeah.
to put yourself out
Yeah.
there.
So you
Mm.
have to you have to keep going. You have to keep going. You have to keep putting yourself out there.
Today on Love's Music, I speak with Gabrielle Caruthers. Gabrielle Caruthers is the host of the Starving Artist Development Podcast, better known as the SAD Podcast. She interviews artists and creatives and also gives tips and advice and creates content that helps artists monetize their brand. Up next, all the way from Detroit, we have Gabrielle Caruthers. So you have the Starving Artist Development Podcast, or SAD Podcast, which I actually really like. I like the name too. What drew you to want to support and create content for who you refer to as the starving artist?
I have produced 3 shows, and the Starving Artist Development Podcast was the 3rd show that I decided to launch, pretty much because I feel like there was a need to speak to other creative entrepreneurs like myself, especially after deciding to walk away from teaching dance after 20 years and performing for 30 years. I kind of reached a pinnacle in my life where I felt like I've done enough in my city. I've accomplished enough in my city. I have educated so many people on so many different levels. And I always wanted to dive back into podcasting. That was always something I was always passionate about. And originally, when I went to school at Wayne State University, I originally went to school for journalism. And then I decided, I said, no, I am going to drop out of college, work at Disney for a year, and then go back and re-audition for the dance department. So ended up obtaining my bachelor's of science in dance with a minor in communication studies. During that duration, once I decided to walk away from teaching dance after like 20 something years, I realized that I wanted to be able to give back to creatives that were kind of in the same predicament as myself. I'm a mom, I'm a wife. I guess you could say I'm officially a mompreneur now that I've decided to step back into working for myself again. But with the initial start of the Starving Artist Development, it was born out of a need to still want to give back to creatives, but also it was born out of a need for me to ask those hard questions and talk about things that, like I said, I was experiencing as an artist, and some resources and funding and other things that just weren't available or accessible to people like myself, especially here in the city of Detroit. And also breaking bread with my fellow colleagues here in the city that were creatives as well. When we would sit down, we would have these hard conversations. And I'm like, these are some really good conversations that we should capture, whether it's audio or video, because I feel like I know I have a lot to say, but there are other people that have a lot to say as well about being a creative and some things that we experience that are not always, the best experience, but also offering wisdom to other aspiring creators.
Now, when you say a hard question or a hard conversation, can you give me an example?
Yeah. So one example, I actually just wrapped up an interview with one of my fellow podcast friends. His name is JG Galloway, and he pretty much curated an opportunity for a lot of podcasters here in the city of Detroit. There were no podcast studios here, like at all, when we first started out podcasting some years ago. And he encouraged a lot of people, to kind of find their voice in podcasting and to advocate for them and to let them know that podcasting really isn't that hard, right? That anybody can do it. But within that interview, we both talked about navigating being a podcaster and how that burnout is real. And sometimes you reach a point in like your podcasting career where you're like, I want to take a break because I don't have anything else to talk about, or I'm burnt out from the editing, from the content creation, from sitting across and talking to people that may not be in alignment with what it is that, you do or whatever. But I know for myself, when we spoke on that and he talked about, the importance of just like, do you like podcasting? Like, and if you want to find out whether or not you like it, like just record your first 10 episodes and then see, how you feel afterwards. And I know for me, I always hit that plateau with the 50th episode. And then after that, I was burnt out and I would take breaks. And starting the Starving Artist Development Podcast, one thing I said to myself, I said, listen, if you are going to do this, you have to be consistent, but also you have to be realistic with your recording schedule, especially balancing motherhood and being a wife and just, balancing day-to-day stuff, right? So some other hard questions too that I've asked a couple of my artist friends. Sometimes we dig into like the origin of why they became the creative they became. What inspired them to keep going? What do some days feel like or look like for them when they're experiencing burnout, or when maybe they've decided, you know what, I've reached my pinnacle in my career and I no longer want to do this anymore and I want to do something else. Or if you were in the thick of it, was there ever a case in point where you were like, I don't want to do this anymore, but then you say, you know what, I'm going to keep going, right? So those are some hard questions that I normally ask, but I do my best. I try not to dig too deep unless if they want to, talk about some things. And like I said, I hold space for people to have those hard conversations because I'm a crier. So I'm like, I can't do this. We can't.
I think it's the age thing. I'm getting more sensitive in my older age too. I could cry. I get emotional. I know when you talk about hard questions and hard conversations, one of the things that makes creative successful is their delusion. But also to be successful, you have to have a really good relationship with honesty and be self-aware. Yeah. How do you navigate between these delusional artists and then bringing them back down to reality so you can actually have a realistic strategy?
There are times where I do have to shake some of my creatives up a little bit and say, listen, I'm going to need you to wake up and I'm going to need you to get your stuff together, because at the end of the day, yes, it is about the creativity, but also it's about how you structure your creativity. And if you don't have systems in place or any type of structure, you are going to either fail as a creative, you are going to end up a starving artist as a creative because you're having trouble accumulating income or even just sustaining income. But also it just looks unprofessional, right? So you got to have certain things in place when you're a creative. And I know even for myself, like I'm a creative with ADHD. So sometimes, I do my best to work against my ADHD and I do pretty well with masking it. But then there are days where I'm like, I have to have a schedule. I have to have systems put in place or else my day is not going to go according to plan. So if that means, hey, I got to wake up at 5 a.m. so I can go walk on the treadmill, listen to my audiobook, and I can, kind of double down on that. And then I can maybe schedule out some emails for like a 13-minute time frame and then go take a shower and then go wake up my child and get her ready for school and make sure that her breakfast is good. So just really systemizing my day, it helps me as a creative because I know, and even when we talk about creative burnout, right? There are times where we don't feel like creating. So what I had to learn is that you have to pick days where you just don't focus on your creativity and you do something that has nothing to do with what it is that you specialize in. So if it is, going to like the pool hall or reading a book or seeing or watching a movie that you wouldn't normally watch or trying out a new hobby, something that you wouldn't normally do, I think what helps me and some of my other colleagues kind of spark their creativity is just doing stuff that would be out of the norm.
You talk about systemizing and you talked about consistency. And I think that sometimes artists can get misled. You go on social media and everybody's like, put out your music. You got to be consistent over and over again. But I think consistency without nuance is where the burnout comes from. So if you direct an artist to be consistent, what are some of the ways that they might be able to monitor them so they're not just working in vain, just activity with no progression? What are some of the things they should be paying attention to instead of just the number of things they're posting or number of songs they're putting out? Just blind consistency.
I will say this, and this is going to sound, I wouldn't say off the record, but I really feel like the first thing that artists really need to do, they need to pay attention to their mental health first before they put out any type of content. They need to take inventory of where they're at physically and mentally, because sometimes you can be a creative and you can just, be pushing out content because you're supposed to push out content. Like
Right.
if I have friends that are, rappers or whatever, and they're constantly promoting their music, but I find myself at times saying, but who are you?
Mm.
And yes, I like your music, and maybe some other people like your music, but who are you as a person, not just the artist? What can you tell me that other people don't know about you? That yes, I know about you, but what can you tell other people something that they don't know besides your music? Because when you're just constantly pumping out content, at some point, people might start to tune out the stuff that you're pumping out constantly because it's just always music, 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 but it's never, well, what's behind the music? Like what's the substance behind the music? What's the story behind the music? What keeps you motivated to keep creating that music? And I feel like when you have those honest and organic conversations, I think you can make better content.
Right.
And then once you do like a brain dump, you can then systemize that content and make it easier. But also picking a realistic schedule. For a lot of artists, the only way that they can make their money for real is through sync licensing, streaming royalties, and like other ways too, maybe like physical product, right? But
merch, yeah.
And merch, right? But we're living in a day and age where like the analog is being phased out. Everything is just, quick, 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 quick.
Right.
So we're losing the momentum, but also the focus to really sit and to divest in the music, right? And to enjoy the music. Like my homegirl, I have her album up here and I bought it because I know what it's like to just sit and to listen to a song and to allow the song to take over, right?
Right.
But even with the content creation and doing like rollouts and stuff, like I said, for a lot of artists, you really have to figure out why you're doing this to begin with, right? Because I feel like once you forget that, then it's no longer about the music. It's no longer about the artistry anymore. So really knowing your why and checking in when it comes to your physical and your mental health, I feel like that is going to help you with pretty much creating and pushing out better content instead of just pushing out stuff for the sake of the algorithm.
There's a theory, and I want to say it's Gary Vee, but I could be wrong, so don't quote me on the source. It's almost like sitcom mentality, right? You won't sit down and watch 30 minutes of commercials, but you will watch 26 minutes of a story and then 4 minutes of ads, right? To fill in that 30 minutes. So it's almost like, well, if you're going to ask somebody for a purchase to sell them something, you should be entertaining them at a 5-to-1 ratio. 5 posts of entertainment, 5 posts about just you, your story, your life, and then you can maybe do the ask. And the point of the article was, the longer you prolong the ask, the bigger the ask can be. So if you're showing up, hey, share my story, share my song, come to my show. If you're asking for something every week, you starts to become monotonous. But the longer you can provide value before that ask, the better off you can be, and the bigger the ask can be. Have you seen any of this play out in real time? I'm just curious if you have like an example of that theory, or if maybe you disagree with it.
No, I do agree. So I have a friend, he's an artist here in the city that I've had to talk to because he did an EP, and actually this is his 5-year anniversary for his EP. And he called me because he's like, I just want to just, spit some ideas to you and see like how it sounds.
Mm-hmm.
But he was struggling with knowing that he could implement these things. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't because of the funding, right? Or the creativity, but it was the willingness to know that his imposter syndrome didn't have to exist with his creativity.
Okay.
And with that, pouring back into him and telling him like what he's capable of doing, for my friend to come back and say like, wow, like, thank you for pouring back into me, because there are always times where I doubt myself, or I doubt that my creativity isn't enough. Even when I am pushing out, my music or my content, it's important to have those conversations, even with your artist friends, because, creators are sensitive too, right? What did Eric Badu say? Keep in mind, I'm an artist and I'm sensitive about my shit,
sure.
Right?
Yeah.
So you really, I've noticed a difference, even with my friend, my colleague that I was talking to. I noticed a difference in how he pumps out his content now.
Right.
And that has helped with increasing his downloads. Now, of course, is it going to take time to reach like this milestone where you can make a certain amount of income off of your streaming rights and stuff? Yeah, it is. But also, he's created an entire brand and he's done a lot of storytelling around his album or his EP. So I think that helps too with his success as an artist because he's really big on storytelling. And I
Yeah.
know, like myself, I love Nas and
Sure.
Jay-Z and Kendrick Lamar, and I love how they approach their writing process and how in a lot of their music there's a lot of storytelling, there's a
Yeah.
lot of build up.
Yes.
So at least for me, I know that keeps me, interested in the music because there's substance behind what it is that they're doing. But I also feel like I'm in like this mind movie where I'm in the scene with them. I can smell, the air. I can like touch whatever item they're talking about, right? So I really think that makes a difference too. Like really just like you said, honing your brand, honing your craft, and being authentic in the process, but also being realistic
Mm,
about your music, right?
absolutely.
And what you can pump out, what you can't pump out. And I know sometimes you do have to appeal to your listeners, which
I want to ask.
can also be a problem, right?
I
That
wanted to
can be an
ask
issue.
about that too because there's a school of thought that says that obviously if you're an artist you want to be authentic and tell your story and make music you like. Of course, the minute you decide you want to be in the music business, you actually want to ask the public to subsidize your lifestyle with their money so you can sell your art. You are now in service to the public. Do you
Yeah.
believe that artists that are looking to be in the music business, like financially viable, are in service to the public?
Unfortunately, they are. I mean, at the end of the day, where you're an artist, you're a business.
Yeah.
Like what did Jay-Z say? I'm not a businessman, I'm a businessman.
Yeah.
And when it comes to your artistry, which it does suck at times because you do have to often remind yourself, am I doing this for me or am I doing it for the greater good, right?
Right.
And we know music is universal and music is meant to heal and touch the lives of others, right? And when you are a musician, even if you're a DJ, if you're a writer, if you're a choreographer, you want to create things that you like, but at the end of the day, it's about stewardship.
Mm-hmm.
And you have to create things that appeal to your audience. And I learned that even as a choreographer when I was working, when I, worked on different projects, working in the school system, working as a contractor. I was a co-founder of a dance studio. I'm no longer a co-founder, but we get so engulfed in the creation process because obviously we love to create, but then we forget that if we are asking people to subsidize our lifestyle, we have to create the things that they want to see.
I agree with that too. And I think that's one of the toughest pills to swallow as an artist because you get these lovely people and they're like, I just want to play my guitar and make songs. And if you want to do that, great. Get a 9 to 5 and make songs on your guitar. But if you want to
Yep.
make north of whatever the cost of living is in your city, you have to make music that resonate with people. Not necessarily that they want to buy. I mean, you can build a community and make money with that community, but you have to make music that appeals to other folks. You get one or the other. You're a business or you make music for your friends.
Yep.
And
That is
I
true.
think artists blur those lines, and it gets really discouraging because they're like, I think it's good, but no, but it's not. I think it's good. I want to make music around the clock, but I can't get enough people to come to shows or stream or whatever, and I'm stuck in this rut. And I think they have a hard time accepting it as a business. They're just kind of waiting for
And
it to
also,
come along. Yeah.
when when we only send our music to our friends and family, we get what is it, a biased opinion, right?
They
So
love us. Yeah, they want to hurt our feelings.
right, they're not going to tell us the truth. So if you take that music and you do like a honest listening party with people that don't know you, they've never heard your music before, then I feel like that's when the feedback is more authentic than it is when it's coming from a friend or a family or a spouse, right? Of course, your friends and family are going to champion you. I mean, why not? But then you have some friends that are low key haters, and that's okay too. But yeah, definitely getting into those rooms and doing like you can do like a soft listening party. Matter of fact, a gentleman here in Detroit, his music is tied into coffee. He incorporates coffee into like his music videos or like his short reels and stuff. But that's his thing, right? So if you were to play his songs will go well like at a coffee house or an unplugged or like something like real chill and low key.
Yeah, sounds great.
But it matches his brand, right? So he did something that I could appreciate because I'm a coffee drinker, I'm a coffee lover, but I'm also a music lover. And he did his event at a coffee shop. It was a local coffee shop here in the city. And it's a Black-owned, female-owned operated coffee shop. And he incorporated his listening session with, complimenting the drip coffee or the matcha teas and stuff.
Okay.
And he played off of that, but it was a nice thing because he was surrounded by people that did not know him or may have never heard, his music before. So he could get honest feedback. Now, I enjoy his music, but, it definitely helps. And then also for artists, sometimes you do have to step outside the box. So back to the gentleman I was talking to earlier, my homeboy, his EP that is supposed to, we're celebrating the 5-year anniversary. There's one song on there called Decompression, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I said, well, I know you want to like do some like small micro performances or whatever, but have you ever thought about incorporating this song with a live band at a yoga or meditation seminar?
Yeah.
Right? Sounds far-fetched, but if the song is about mental health and awareness and battling, depression and stuff, you don't have to perform it in a traditional setting. You can find the things that kind of coincide with your music. But I think when you are creative too, and sometimes you have to appeal to a certain audience, you get stuck in the mindset of, oh, I have to perform in like a traditional setting. I have to be on a stage. I have to have, a band and a mic. And it's like, but no, if you think about your music, you can market your music differently and you can still build on your audience. It doesn't have to be in a traditional setting.
Yeah.
Just, thinking outside the box. But, that's my take.
I'm so glad you brought that up because you always hear the criticism. People say, I want to be a musician, but now I have to be an influencer. Now I have to be a content creator if I want to be a successful artist. And I think people are kind of looking at it wrong because they're looking at what everybody else is doing and thinking, oh, I play my music, but I have to do that. And I don't think it's that. There's been content creators before social media. Like Prince released an album for free in a newspaper. Kanye was putting videos on the side of a building. The idea that you have to use this like traditional, what you know is content creation or influencing is like, I think it's the wrong framework. I mean, artists that have been doing crazy, interesting stuff. And if you put the same creativity into the promotion as you did the album, I think artists would have it would just be fun. I think it'd be hard work, but I think it'd be a lot of fun. How do you advise folks that want to play music but don't want to make content or have an issue with content?
Ooh. I had a run-in with that situation. Because I'm going to be honest. I am a podcaster who is also sick and tired of making content on social media. But I'm saying,
yeah.
The struggle that I have as a creative is appealing to the algorithm and seeking the validation of others.
Yeah.
And I think that's what holds up like a lot of musicians when it comes to putting out their content. Because if you think about it, before it was deemed content creation, we were already creating content. Like you said, It's just there wasn't a name, attached to it. So it felt good. It felt fun. Almost like when you're in a situationship and there's no title. Like, no, we don't have a title. We're just having fun. And we're exploring and we're doing things. But now that we have to put a title on it, it's not fun anymore.
Yeah.
It's just not fun. So I think that's what it comes down to. It's the validation that a lot of artists are seeking, on top of the fact that imposter syndrome is real. I know I struggle with imposter syndrome a lot. Even when I'm recording. Like I have to sometimes take a step back and like tell myself like, hey, you've got this. You can do this.
Oh,
there's nobody else better than you. You are you for a reason.
Yeah,
like
I think I'm a pretty good podcaster. Then I meet a Gabrielle Caruthers and I'm like, I better step my game up.
No, and it's so funny because I literally had a moment where I'm sitting here and I am constantly critiquing myself. And if anybody knows about any creative, I don't think they're ever satisfied
Yeah.
with
No.
their accomplishments.
Nope.
They're constantly striving for perfection.
Sure.
Like, think about it with Prince, who is my favorite artist.
Mhm.
And I just, want to wish him a happy belated birthday.
Yeah.
But also with Michael Jackson, right?
Mhm.
Michael Jackson, he made a comment one time and it was hilarious. He said, whenever God would bless me with an idea, I had to act on it immediately because I was scared that God would give the idea to Prince. And then, I would just lose being able to like fulfill that idea, right?
That's funny.
But there is a pressure sometimes to want everything to be perfect. And we forget that with creativity, there are just going to be times where things are just going to be so cringe.
Mm.
And in order to keep yourself sharp, you just have to do it. You have to do it with uncertainty. You have to do it even when the algorithm doesn't respond to what you're putting out there. But also, you have to do it with courage. You have to do it when you don't believe in yourself, right? You have to literally hype yourself up to do the things that you may be scared to do because there may be somebody else out there watching you who may need what you have and they see you as motivation. And I know for me, like whenever somebody says that they see my work and they compliment me, I have to take a step back because it's humbling for me because I know how hard I am with myself. Really just give yourself grace.
All right, so from one perfectionist to another, how do you pinpoint the happy medium between qualitative work and perfectionism? Because obviously there's an industry standard. Obviously there's like an objective good, that most people would say, yeah, all right, that's a good job, even if you're not familiar with the medium. How do you know when, all right, this is, I don't want to say good enough, but you're like, all right, this is my standard. And I can walk away from this knowing it's not perfect, but it's presentable.
You know what? I think it's just knowing. Like you just know. And it's not necessarily like, okay, yeah, so I've met the industry standard or whatever, but I think you really just have to tell yourself, like, you know what? I did do a good job.
Yeah.
And this actually, I am producing quality work, right? And it's okay. Like it's okay because at least I had the opportunity to create.
Mhm.
And even if this only touched one person,
right?
At least I got to do it, right? So, but then there are times where you're like, girl, you could have did better. And you could have did better. And you know your expectation and you know your standard. So act according, right? And there are times where even like I've had to take a step back with my own creativity. And not because I was comparing myself to like my peers, but I know that there's a certain expectation that I expect out of myself now that I'm older.
Sure.
And there are just things that I will no longer create or tolerate because I do believe in like divine alignment, but also I believe in popping my stuff and knowing that I'm no sugar honey iced tea, and there's nobody is doing what I'm doing.
Yeah.
But also there's one me.
Yeah.
There's one me. And I'm cool with that. I don't have to be like anybody else. I don't have to follow somebody else's standard per se. Now, I mean, unless there's like a big check behind it, then okay, that we'll figure that out. But as far as setting the expectation, raising the bar for myself, right? My biggest competition is always going to be me.
Sure.
And once I got to the point where the validation was no longer needed because I put in the work, even though I'm still a student of the game, I'm always learning. I'm always willing to learn. But there are times where I really do have to be like, no, I know this stuff and I'm good at what I do. And I'm not going to let you convince me otherwise because I've dealt with that my entire life too, where one, I was a plus size dancer. And you talk about adversities, like facing some hard days as a dancer. There were times where I was called fat and I had to keep going. There were times where I had a contract revoked because I didn't lose enough weight and I had to keep going. I was rejected to the dance department at Wayne State because they said I was big and then went back and re-auditioned 30 pounds heavier and got in.
Wow.
But that's me getting out of my own way and telling myself, like, you know what, I made a promise to myself. And one thing I'm not going to do, I cannot disappoint my inner child, right? And now that I have a daughter,
Yeah.
I feel like it's different. It is so different now because she's looking up to me and she's watching what I am doing. So even if I do mess up, I want her to know that it's okay to make those mistakes. However, you pick yourself up and you keep going. Even when you want to cry in the shower, even when you face adversities, when you're dealing with grief, when you're dealing with loss of a job, loss of anything. But I think that's the best part about being a creative is because you can let all of that out.
Right.
In your creativity. And then don't be a musician because you can write about it, you can sing about it.
Yeah.
There's so many things that you can do. You can take those negative experiences and you can shape it into something beautiful. You can create something beautiful and then you can package that and send it off into the world and touch somebody, right? You're helping somebody. And I don't want to get too, biblical or nothing because, but I've always felt like God would not put more on you that you cannot handle. And sometimes there are battles that we fight, battles that we are like, God, I don't know why you putting this on.
Yeah.
I cannot handle this right now. But those battles are meant to teach you a lesson and they are always going to be a blessing in disguise. And it's not always about why is this happening to me? It's more of why is it happening for me? So I know a lot of my struggles taught me a lesson, taught me a hard lesson. Now, as an adult, well, I mean, I've always been an adult, but now that I am like reaching 40, I'm knocking on 40, I no longer look at things as it happening to me. I look at it as, okay, what's the lesson that I need to learn from this?
What is one of the most valuable lessons that you have learned when it comes to adversity and getting over something? Something that our listeners can kind of take with them.
Last year around this time, I did the unthinkable. I had to bury my 19-year-old niece.
Oh.
She battled cancer for 2.5 years and I watched her go through that. But it was her strength and her adversity that pushed me to keep going. And really, she was the initial reason why I launched the Starving Artist Development podcast. And I did that because the way that she handled her cancer battle, you're 19. So you're like,
yeah,
you still have the world to experience, right? But for her, the world was bigger than her oyster. And she knew, her time was winding down, but she encouraged us to keep living, right? So when she said that, I was like, I have nothing to complain about.
Right.
No matter how hard it is. I'm like, if she can get through that and she can battle that and she can do it as gracefully as she did and to be as young as she was after losing her mom prior to that, like 4 years ago.
Jeez.
There's no reason why I can't sit up here and start this podcast. There's no reason why I can't, give back to the creative community in a different way. Like I don't have to do it through dance anymore. I can do something else. There's no reason why I shouldn't be able to take the chances or take risk for myself or bet on myself when she was willing to bet on her life, right?
Absolutely.
And we have to be okay with taking risk.
Yeah.
Some of us, we won't take the risk. We won't put ourselves out there. Even musicians, like it's scary to put your work out there. It's scary to be criticized or ridiculed, for your creativity. But like I said, I think the hardest part is just putting it out there.
Absolutely. Well, they say
put it out there.
They said more people would be successful if you could be bad in private, but as a musician, you have to be bad in public before you get good. So
put
yourself out there.
So you have to keep going. You have to keep going. You have to keep putting yourself out there. And for me, like I said, I am grateful for the lesson that I did learn, especially when my niece was here and some of the wisdom, she dropped even at her young age. And I look at her story, I look at her time, and I look at just everything, right? And I'm grateful because I'm grateful that I had that time with her. Even when it was hard to navigate that time because I was still working as an educator, but it made it easier for me to walk away from my job as an educator. I'll tell you that much. Working in education was hard. It was hard too, right? And when you start to realize how beautiful life really is,
Yeah.
And that there are so many things out there. Like the world really is your oyster. And you just have to be willing to just continue to put yourself out there. And I think this may be the first year that I've bet on myself way more than I thought I would, even just in the last 6 months. 6 months ago, I don't think I would have pitched to be on a podcast, on somebody else's podcast.
Mm-hmm.
6 months ago, I don't think I would have pitched or accepted a brand deal from the Lion King.
Yeah.
So you go through like this evolution phase, right? Even as an artist. And sometimes it takes like a great tragedy to push you in a direction where you're like, you know what? Let me pick myself up by the bootstraps.
Yeah.
Let me get going. Let me do what I got to do.
Mm-hmm.
But let me do it knowing that I was given another opportunity to wake up and create, right?
It doesn't feel like a blessing sometimes, like at the time, but like the ability to create, it is wonderful to be able to fill space where there wasn't anything and fill it with a song or a painting or dance steps or whatever, you know? What's something that you're proud of that might not have anything to do with podcasting?
I look back at some pictures of myself as an educator, and sometimes you forget how many people you've taught or you've reached over the years, right? Because I just wasn't documenting it like I should have.
Sure.
And then I had to create a portfolio for myself. Like I finally said, I'm going to sit down and I'm going to work on my personal portfolio for my brand. And when I started reflecting on the things that I accomplished, I was like, Gabrielle, I'm so proud of you. Like, I can't believe you did all of that, by yourself. So, one, I'm proud of that. But two, I am also proud of the woman that I am becoming in the midst of my own adversities, right? Like I've struggled with chronic illnesses. I developed something called alopecia areata in like 2019. And and again, like when you say it out loud, like I don't say it so people can feel sorry for me. I say it because I want people to see me as inspiration and to say like, that's what I'm saying. I have hard days. I always have hard days, right? Because it seems like it never ends. Like the storm just keeps coming, right? Like it's always something. But I really do have to like laugh to keep from crying. Like I'm a millennial. Millennials are always cracking jokes. We don't take anything serious, right? But I really feel like
right on the border, but I'm the same way. I like laugh just to get through stuff. Yeah.
Just to get through. And sometimes, you can't always laugh about everything, but there are times where I can look at stuff and I can crack a joke about something that's happened to me, or like I said, I can look at it as, well, maybe this had to happen to me so that way I could be an inspiration to somebody else. Because my husband will tell you, like, there are days where I am like, why is this happening to me? Why did this happen to me? Like, what did I do? I'm a good person. But I think I'm proud of how I show up every day in spite of everything that I'm going through. Because you talk about a book, I can definitely write a book about some things that I've experienced. And when I tell some people, they look at me and they're like, but you're so full of life. Like you're so bubbly and whimsical. And I'm like, yeah, sometimes I don't even know how I'm, able to show up and be present and be, goofy Gabby or whatever. Right. But I don't know. Cause it's easier to stay mad about stuff, right? Than it is to choose happiness. So sometimes you just got to choose happiness. But my last and final thing that I'm extremely proud of is being able to birth my child. Because she was a difficult pregnancy too. She was a very difficult pregnancy. Yeah. And she was a twin, but listen, I felt like that was one of my greatest accomplishments. Like I've done a lot. I said, but
I couldn't
become
do it.
A mom.
I literally couldn't do it. So it's a heck of an accomplishment.
To become a mom and to and like I said, to wake up and to just keep going after everything that I experienced when I was carrying my daughter. She literally just had her preschool ceremony, and they gave her a cap and gown. And I was like, oh my God, I'm about to start crying. Why would y'all give her a cap and gown, right? But it was because I knew the story behind seeing that picture of my 5-year-old daughter and saying, you did it, Joe. You did it, Joe. Like you brought a whole human being into the world and you kept her alive. So that I'm proud of that. I and not to like, I know I can ramble sometimes, but yes, I'm proud of the people that I've taught over the years. I'm proud of the obstacles that I continue to overcome. But most importantly, I am proud to show up as my daughter's superhero.
I love that. I guess what they say maturity isn't measured by just age, but the time horizon on our decision making, right? Like when you're a kid, you just all you know is you want to eat right now. And then you're a teenager, I know what I want to do this weekend. And now as we start to get into those later chapters of our life, we start to think further into the future, right?
Yeah.
From a professional standpoint, what is something that you're most worried about? And then something that you're most excited about?
Well, I'm definitely worried about the funding. I'm worried about the funding as a creative because I'm going to be really honest with you.
Okay.
Working with other creatives can be difficult.
Yeah.
And I say that in the nicest way, but I'm also going to say it in the honest way.
Okay.
Because it's two things. Either creatives, they struggle to be able to afford certain resources, or they don't believe in investing in those resources. Absolutely. And I'm saying that as a creative because I've dealt with that and I've had to actually turn away clients and say, you know what, we're not going to be a good match.
Right.
Because I don't mind helping and I don't mind really giving back and showing up for you, but I also know that I have to stop myself because I can't keep giving and giving and giving to the point where I'm like, okay, well now I'm managing you. And now that's a different price point.
That's a different service. Yeah.
That's a different service, right?
Yeah.
But something that I am excited about, I'm excited about the climate of the creative culture. And by creative culture, I mean, I remember growing up, like being a creative that was kind of like a nerd thing, I guess. Like, you know, we were like a theater kid or we were into like certain.
We called them art nerds.
Yeah, like you were really like, you were a nerd, right?
Theater nerd.
But now it's a fad. It's popular. Everybody wants to be a creative entrepreneur. And I'm like, I've been a creative entrepreneur, like in my entire life. So, but I'm glad that you all see the value in us now. So now you just got to pay us for our creativity.
Right. True. When you talk about being excited for the creative climate, give me some examples, maybe some other creators, podcasts, or just music. This is a music podcast. So who are you listening to that excites you? Maybe some creators I might not know about.
Oh, and I listen to everybody. Like I have such a large palette when it comes to music. I will listen to country. Like Shania Twain was my girl when I was growing up. I love some Shania Twain. I would listen to a Madonna. I would listen to I just put on Peebo Bryce's album not too long ago. And it's a funny story behind that. So I am actually supposed to be a Bryson, not a Caruthers. So Peebo is actually my husband's cousin, but they only met like twice. Yes, that's his third cousin, and they all look alike.
Pretty cool.
And what I had to explain to my husband, I said, do you know who this man is and what he has done for our generation? I was like, you don't understand. I said, that's big, but that was a whole.
He's like the Mount Rushmore of like Black adult contemporary. It's like Luther, Peebo, maybe Aaron.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
So it sucked that we didn't get to see him in December because again, he literally like just passed away. And I was like, dog, that's like the last person I needed to see. But yeah, so Peebo, who else? I mean, you know, like I said, Kendrick, Nas, Jay-Z. You know, I'm from Detroit, so I'm Jay Dilla through and through. Slum Village. I have some of my local artist friends, Mahogany Jones, Miss Corona, Trey Freeman.
Nice.
Steven, I can't remember his last name, but he just had the event not too long ago. My friend Fonzo, like, and I'm not saying this like because they're my friends, like I'm saying it because they're actually really good. Even though I just had the conversation about your friends love your music, but I'm like, no, they're actually really good. They are really good.
Yeah.
So I definitely try to tap into like the local music scene here. And then, you know, Detroit is big on like ghetto techno. So I listen to a lot of that too. My homeboy, Sheefy McFly, he's an artist, but he's also a ghetto tech producer. My friend Nick Speed is a producer here. But Detroit is it's the music mecca.
Yeah. I don't know.
Like
Motown. I mean,
when you think about, when you think about Detroit, think about Motown, but there's so much more to Detroit.
Sure.
besides the Motown, because like I said, you have the ghetto tech, you have the gospel, you have. Did you know that Detroit was the home of the oldest harp community?
How could I possibly know that?
Because
I
who
would,
knows that? Like, who would know that? We are the home of the harps, the harp community.
yeah, I didn't know that.
So if you need a harp player for your wedding,
Yeah.
we're the first generation harp organization here in the city, right?
That in mind.
Who's gonna?
Hopefully, I won't be having a second wedding, but
I mean, just saying, like, so yeah, if y'all need a harp player, hit me up, right? But yeah, so thinking about Detroit's music scene and how we've birthed so many different styles of music. And sometimes we don't get the credit that we deserve, right? And yes, Barry Gordy, thank you. I appreciate you for, being the pillar of Motown. But before there was Motown, like there were so many other different sounds that was birthed, or Motown was birthed because of those other different sounds, right? And if you're from Detroit, of course, you're going to love music. Like you're just going to love music. You can't help it. But I listen to everything. To answer your question, I listen to everything.
Okay, so as somebody that works with a bunch of artists, you always hear somebody say, this person has it. They just have it. I don't know what it is, but they have it. In your opinion, if you were to define it, and you just had to, because most people can't define it, what do you say when you meet an artist that has it? What does that look like?
I can't put it in words. You kind of feel it. You just feel it, like, like, oh my gosh, this person is really talented. And I'm saying this like without tooting my own horn, because I try not to do this. There are some people that I know before they even like blew up or got famous.
Yeah.
And I was always pushing them like, yo, like you're really talented. And I really think you should pursue this for real. And they're looking at me like, nah, I'm not talented. Here we are 10 to 15 years later, and they're crushing their careers.
And you follow back then.
Yeah. Yeah. And you kind of sit back and you're like, I told you so, but I'm not going to take credit for it, but I told you so. Yeah. But I don't know. I don't know if it's like a gift or anything, but I feel like I've always like known if somebody just has it. Yeah. You just feel it. It's a feeling. It is really like an aura.
We were talking about it the other day, and it was like, I think it's when the talent, the visual aesthetic, and the confidence are aligned effortlessly. Like some people they're not doing it on purpose. It's like, all right, they're obviously good, but I meet people that are good that don't have it. You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then I meet people that are super talented, but for whatever reason, they don't have like that magnetism. And I'm like, that's a good artist. You know what I mean? I'd watch them work with somebody. And then every once in a while, somebody walks in the room, they don't even do anything. I'm like, that's a star. I don't know what it is. It's just a star. And I think it's like when all those three things align and it's happening organically. And I think that's what it is.
Yeah, you just kind of feel it. Like you just know. Yeah. It radiates off of them. Yeah. I don't know. It's like Jesus walking in the room with the halo. Like, you just know.
Well, with you seeing artists that came from this point to this point, let me try it. I'm gonna choke myself with the cord. With you being somebody who's seen an artist get from here to here, what do you feel is more important, talent or work ethic?
This is what I used to tell my students. Sometimes I don't care how talented you are. If you are lazy, I'm not going to pick you. I don't care if you can bust out that pot parade for West Hay Tire and you are the best of the best. But baby, I will take passion. I will take drive. I will take agility. I will take the will to want to succeed over the talent, because talent is one thing. I know they say sometimes it's not about what you know, it's about who you know, but your work ethic is always going to outshine what it means to be talented. I mean, who's a good person at, they're not really talented, but like, they're just a hard worker. Like, matter of fact, okay, so Eazy-E couldn't rap. Like, he just was not a rapper.
He couldn't, no.
But he had a good team behind him.
He had to put his lines in one at a time, I heard.
Yeah, like, he was horrible, right? There's some other people, too. I can really be like, you're not that good, but you have the work ethic. But I ain't gonna do that. But I don't know, Eazy kind of just came to my mind. Like, I remember I was listening to a song the other day, and I was
that's actually a perfect example of somebody who just had it. Like, he might not have been able to like technically rap, but his like presence, like he would walk in a room, this little guy, and you just know he was in charge. you know?
That was it.
That's it. That's what it is. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah. Because I mean, you can make an artist. You can groom them. You can teach them your ways. You can, hire a ghostwriter. Like you can literally make or curate a star. And I know sometimes they say like a star is born, but like no, I think you can manufacture a musician.
I think it starts with somebody. I think the people that we've seen that have broken through were already well ahead of like the average singer, dancer, whatever. They were already ahead. And then they just got put into like that pop machine, and out came your Britney Spears, Dua Lipa, fill in the blank.
They got the extra zush. Matter of fact, Drake is a good example. I remember when Drake first started. So, Drake, he's from Canada, he's from Toronto. And for a while, his music was kind of like centered around the Jay Dilla sound, which was like neo soul, hip hop, whatever. So you have like Common, even Kanye, like old Kanye West, right?
Yeah.
Slum Village, like Erykah Badu. And he would put like his stuff on MySpace, and it wasn't great, but it was good. It was like, okay, this is nice. I can listen to it.
Right.
When he performed a few times, like I would go and see him perform before he was really famous. Really? And I was like, okay, this can do. Like he will perform at the casino. And with us being in Detroit, we could just take like a 10-minute drive over the bridge. He was probably, I feel like he was one of those artists that they took and were like, okay, now we're going to give you a little bit of money and we're going to start grooming you and molding you. And then he came out with the album. I think it was Take Care or something.
Yeah, that's the second one.
And I was like,
major release, yeah.
So it had to be his third album. He was sitting at the table with his gold ring. And I know this album because it was my favorite. It was one of my favorite albums.
It's incredible.
But that album was the album where I was like, there he is.
Like he arrived. Yeah.
He arrived.
Yeah.
And you could feel it, you could smell it, you could see it.
Yeah.
You knew like it's his time now.
Yeah.
It's his time. So that's like the it. That's the it factor.
That's it.
Yep, that's it.
Okay, so if you had a 30-second elevator ride with your younger self, 10, 11 years old, you only have 30 seconds. What are you telling that young lady?
Never give up. Never let anybody tell you what you can or cannot do. You are beautiful. You are more than brilliant. You are a star. You are remarkable. And nobody can do it better than you.
Love it. Good. I'm going to get it on a t-shirt. Oh, Gabrielle, I had such a good time talking with you. Please, I'm sure people are going to see this and want to support what you are doing. Can we get a hold of you so we can stay plugged in?
You can follow me at Gabrielle Caruthers. That's GabrielleCaruthers. I am on Instagram. Mm-hmm. I am rarely on TikTok, but I guess I'll start posting on TikTok now. I'm on Threads heavily. I'm in the Threads community. So if you want to send me something, yes, please come over to Threads. We are over there having some good conversations. I love it. I love it over there. And also you can visit my website for my podcast, starvingartistdevelopment.com. I always make sure that I upload new episodes on there, but we are available on every streaming platform. I mean, every streaming platform. And you can watch the video episodes on YouTube. But soon I will be transitioning to a different platform. So we'll see about that. But yeah, I'm everywhere. And you can Google me. That's what I said. Google me. I'll pop up.
Oh, I love it. Well, thank you so much for I know how busy you are between family and work and business, and as an entrepreneur's job is never done. So thank you so much for joining me. The rest of you, thank you so much for tuning in. Check us out for new episodes every Thursday morning at 7 a.m. Make sure you check out Gabrielle Caruthers, everything she's working on. She's an absolute gem. Thank you. You are a friend of the show. I hope we get to stay in touch.